Streaming now, this is the Wood TV Live Desk.
And good afternoon, everyone. Phil Penarski here with the Wood TV Live Desk. Hope you're all having a great start to your Wednesday. News 8 digital reporter Matt Jarowski is here once again to talk about his latest Sunday story, and it deals with one of the most invasive plants across the country. It's called Kudzu. Matt, thank you for being here. Let's get right into it, though. For people that are probably watching it, or maybe not from the South, maybe haven't visited, or maybe haven't kept up with invasive species of plants, let's talk a little bit about what exactly Kudzu is.
Yeah, so people from down south or even out east, they're no stranger to kudzu because it's a major issue there. It's an invasive plant. It's really a type of vine. It was first brought here a long time ago. It's credited, someone brought it to the 1876 Philadelphia Centennial Exposition, which sounds super classy, super important. It was brought here just because it looks pretty. Like as an ornamental plant, they have these pretty purple flowers that grow off of these vines, and so it was brought here just as from Asia as this new kind of plant. And at that time, it wasn't really understood to be a pest, and years later, it still didn't really have that much of an established population. Really, it's an invasive plant that we kind of put the burden on ourselves. So even as late as the 1950s. A lot of state and federal agencies were using kudzu to prevent soil erosion. Because it's a vine that grows so fast, they're able to just plant it and help it grow to prevent that erosion. And so they ultimately planted more than 1 million acres of this. So now this vine is basically taken over most areas of the South and parts of the East Coast. And a new study out of Purdue Fort Wayne says that the Great Lakes region, specifically Michigan, could be next if we're not careful.
And I do want to get into that study in just a little bit, Matt. But just talking about the plant itself, kudzu. I'm coming from Alabama. When I first moved down there, everybody was saying, watch out for kudzu. Make sure your apartment complex, takes care of it. You don't want it overrunning the place. And I had never heard of it. In the 3.5 years down there, it became just a huge pest, really, to deal with. And that's why this study that came out recently is so important, because it's saying that Michigan very well is already dealing with this and could very well be the next hotspot for a kudzu infestation.
Right. There are a number of reasons why it's a problem. People don't really want it around their home because it can also bring certain bugs that release a specific odor that are not great, informally called kudzu bugs. But the big issue is that they drown out so much other native plant life. They grow so fast. Really, they grow up to around 60 feet a season, and sometimes up to a foot a day. So these are fast-moving, strong vines, and they'll grow over and just shade out these other plants. And there are a lot of instances where these are trees and other plants that animals and creatures in the ecosystem really rely on. So it's important to keep. So it's obviously impacting the plant life, but it's impacting the animal life as well.
Right now, and along with Michigan, this is expecting to hit a lot of other states across the Midwest. What does that sort of mean for them as far as what this is going to what could happen potentially with this? Is it going to end up looking like the South a little bit more as temperatures start to get warmer and kudzu starts to move in a little bit more?
Yeah, that's kind of what remains to be seen, is how we can handle it. I feel that plant experts have a better understanding of kudzu now and how to prevent growth. But yeah, like you mentioned, the Great Lakes region, we are the next step in the kudzu's expansion range, because it's steadily growing north from the south and from the east. There are a couple reasons why Michigan specifically could potentially have a problem. Because we already have some confirmed populations here. According to Dr. Marshall, who led that Purdue Fort Wayne study, I spoke to him, and we know that kudzu's been found, like established populations of the plant, in 5 counties across the state. And that includes 3 here in West Michigan: Allegan, Berrien, and Cass. So we know that it's here, and that's just what we know. There can be a lot of populations that we haven't found yet, so it really could be further spread. The other issue, you kind of hit on this, is a bit of our warming trends. Kudzu thrives not just on getting adequate amount of rain, which Michigan gets, but having more mild winters and hot summers. That's when kudzu thrives. So Michigan, the Great Lakes area in particular, and specifically Michigan, are really heating up to potentially have that problem.
Right. No, but it's not all doom and gloom, Matt. You talked to Jordan Marshall, who was a part of that Purdue Fort Wayne study, and he says that, as you mentioned, they kind of understand kudzu a little bit better and can also help prevent it. What are sort of the best ways that they're trying to look at stopping this and really prevent it from becoming a huge problem?
Right. Education is a big part of it, and it's one of those things where further south, where it's so big and expanded, it's really hard to tackle. It's kind of everywhere. It's not that way, at least not yet in Michigan. So raising awareness of people knowing what this plant looks like and what to do, who to contact if you find it. I mean, you can treat it. You can cut the vines and dig up the root hearts to kill off the vine, but it's something that you really have to pay attention to. And there are also pesticides as well, or herbicides that you can use to make sure you're definitely killing off the vines. But there's other ways to treat this as well. A lot of people, or even a lot of professional companies, use goats and sheep, grazers, to kind of come in and clear out all the leaves and make their job that much easier. The goats, they love feeding on it. So it just leaves the exposed vines, and then all you gotta do is cut the vines and dig up the roots, because if you leave the root hearts, they'll just regrow. So, and that's something that you really kind of have to, once you find kudzu in an area, you really have to monitor it for, the experts say, years at a time, because it's such a hardy plant. If there's any part of the root system that can be left behind, it can regrow.
Yeah, well, if you've ever wanted an excuse to buy a couple of goats, maybe now is your best time to start investing in that. We're already getting a couple comments. Matt, Julie says that Muskegon Heights has already been seeing kudzu pop up and everything. So as you mentioned, it is starting to already pop up in a couple of counties. I do want to recommend everybody, if you haven't checked out Matt's story on kudzu and its potential of coming to and invading the rest of Michigan, I highly encourage you to go check it out. If you're watching us on Facebook, you can find a link to that right now in the description box and in the comments section. Matt, as always, thank you so much for stopping by. We really do appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing your next story on Sunday.
Anytime.
And I want to thank everybody else for tuning into this latest edition of the Wood TV Live Desk. I'm Phil Penarski, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.